Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Facade Focus Podcast, where I aim to connect the global facade industry by sharing knowledge and experience for others to learn from. Over the coming weeks, I'll be interviewing leaders and industry experts across the globe to discuss common problems people are facing and explore the solutions helping to move the industry forward. This week, I'm joined by Tali Mejicovsky, Principal Facade Engineer at Arup New York. Tali's been at Arup for nearly 3 decades and has worked on some of the most recognizable cultural and civic projects across the US and abroad. Her focus is simple: get in early, define what the facade wants to be, and make sure the design intent actually makes it through construction. It's fascinating coming from the engineer's perspective, and we get into existing buildings, reclads, dealing with heritage and landmark bodies, and how to improve performance without killing the architecture. It's also a question about what makes a great relationship between facade engineers and glazing contractors, which is something that's close to my heart. It's a real masterclass in performance-based facade design. Quick shout out to our sponsor of the podcast, which is Architectural Glass and Aluminum, otherwise known as AGA. They're a leader in custom curtain wall systems and have been providing tailored glazing solutions for over 55 years. More impressively, they're one of the largest employee-owned businesses in the glazing industry across the US and have a phenomenal team that buys into their ethos of collaboration and craftsmanship. I'm delighted to have them as a partner of the pod. In the meantime, let's get into this week's episode of the Facade Focus Podcast with Tali Mejicovsky. Tali Mejicovsky, great to have you on the Facade Focus Podcast.
Thank you so much, Tom. Thanks for the invite. Great to be here.
Absolutely. Now, I've been looking forward to this. I know we were speaking really briefly off camera, but thanks a lot for setting aside the time to talk to us. I think you're going to bring some great insight. So the way that we typically start this, I've given you a bit of an introduction, but tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're doing now, where you're working, and then how you got there in your journey.
Great. Yeah. So I'm at Arup New York in the facade engineering team. And I've been here for quite a while. Been at Arup overall since 1995 and in facades with Arup since 1998. And I've been sitting in New York since I moved from San Francisco in 2003. So
Great.
I'm a very patient person.
Absolutely, yeah. You've seen it all. You're part of the furniture now.
For real. I'm gonna have to change furniture soon because we're changing office next month. So
wow.
I do change every once in a while, but So I work in the front end of the design usually with the architects, sometimes with owners. Sometimes with building facility managers, sometimes with developers. And my main role is to help define what a facade wants to be and how it can get to where it should be through all of the design and engineering phases. And I'd say, sometimes we get involved in concept. We like to get involved as early as possible. So usually we get pulled on board during scheme or design development, and then we get involved in documentation when a facade is going out for bid. And then we stay on board, ideally through choosing facade contractors and then following through with construction administration on site and making sure that all the design intent is implemented with everything we've learned along the way.
Excellent.
That's kind of what I'm doing right now.
Brilliant. And you're based in New York, but involved in projects where?
All over the place. So I'd say recent years, the brunt of our New York projects are in the US and they are in the Northeast. We've got quite a lot in Boston and Toronto and New York and DC and a little bit in Chicago. And then if we have New York-based architects working overseas, then we also work on or Metro New York area architects working overseas. We'll work on those as well. So in recent years, we've worked with, I don't want to name drop, but, some architects around the world. In Dubai and we're chasing some projects in Florida and, I've worked on projects in Atlanta and Korea.
Wow.
All over the world, really.
Excellent. So there's a few pins on the map then that you've managed to complete some projects.
Yes.
What was your favorite project that you've been involved in?
Ever? Oh God. The most recent one that my favorite is in New York. It's called Solar Carve. It's a Genie Gang tower
Okay.
on the High Line on the West
Yeah,
Side
yeah.
Highway. But my other favorite projects have to be Renzo Piano museums.
Yeah.
I've done the High Museum of Art, and I worked on the Harvard Art Museum and the California Academy of Sciences.
Wow.
And those ones are really fun.
Yeah, I can imagine. Was there a specific unique aspect to them, or was it just the quality of architect that you got to work with? What was so sort of special about them?
There were different projects, actually, those three that I talked about. Some were not as high quality as desired, right? There's always, depending on where it is and what the procurement chain is and who the contractor ends up being and the budget, right?
Yeah.
It can vary, but it's always aspiring to the highest quality of architecture and the design intent being of the highest quality. So they're very different. Like the High Museum of Art, we came on board super late, almost in CA, trying to solve a problem where we needed to design a range screen to fit in 2 3/4 inches.
Wow.
And then that kind of blossomed into dealing with other issues, design issues, and solving them on site. And that was, fully aluminum project for the exterior. Not a lot of glazing, but the glazing was sort of easy to solve.
Okay.
It was mostly off the shelf, actually, as opposed to California Academy of Sciences and Harvard Art Museum, which had a lot of bespoke elements, and the design challenges were completely different.
Yeah.
And that's also performance-based, right? Because the location of the projects being in the north and being subject to high humidity conditions and being prone to condensation, for Harvard Art Museum, that was, art museum sort of design conditions. But for California Academy of Sciences, that was based on the exhibits. Like we had humidity issues on the interior because we had a rainforest basically inside a glass sphere. So how do you design for different design conditions, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So completely different. And that one actually started when I was in San Francisco. So I was very involved in the design phase, but I wasn't around for CA. And Harvard was the opposite. I was came on board late in design and was a little bit more involved in CA. So they're all different. They're all different.
Yeah, I imagine that can affect your perspective on how you feel about the project. I imagine what stage you actually come in to the project as well, if you've maybe missed a part or you've been involved all the way through.
Yeah, totally. And I think with many consultants, sometimes you're asked to do a specific task and you don't see the big picture.
Yep.
Right. So your view is not as holistic as it could be or should be or wants to be in order for you to do the best job on a project.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very cool. So we're going to talk about a couple of different bits here today, which I'm excited about. I think the first thing that we'll dive into, I know we were talking about off camera, the existing buildings segment of the industry and looking at facades from that perspective rather than just new construction or a combination of both. And then we'll dive into a few more selfish questions from my end, just looking at the interactions with the glazing contractors and what a good relationship looks like with the glazing contractors that you work with. So tell us a little bit about the existing building side of the facade department, industry, I suppose we're talking about here in New York, and the challenges that you face with, new construction, maybe even on existing buildings like we sort of discussed.
Yeah. And not just in New York, right? Now that we're, thinking about existing buildings in the broadest sense, this has been going on my entire career. And it's not just an existing building, like, we've been talking about overclads and reclads and expansions to existing or replacement for certain portions of it, like windows in an existing building, but also like just a little bit of my background. I started life as a structural engineer in New York with Arup, but then I moved to Australia and I worked in Sydney for 4 years, and I worked all around Australasia, Sydney, Melbourne, a little bit in Hong Kong, Singapore, Malaysia, and then I came back to the US, worked in San Francisco before returning to New York. So even some of those projects, like, there have been a lot of projects where we put an addition to an existing sandstone building in Sydney, right? Like a glass jewel box as an entry.
Yeah.
Or I did a project at Cheplakhawk Airport, which was a headquarters for Dragonair. And that was two buildings, and they wanted a glass entry podium between the two. And there were two existing buildings, right? So, they might be newer. They're not historic buildings in the way that we're thinking of now. But there's always an existing building context there. And then some of the projects I already spoke about, like at Harvard, that project was a combination of demoing an existing building, retaining an existing building, and adding a new build as an expansion. Wow. So, there's the demos are the easiest, right? Because it's gone.
Yeah.
The reconfiguring what remains is probably the hardest.
Yeah.
And then the new build always has an element of care and association with what the the surrounding buildings are, because even if it's a new build for on a greenfield site, right, you've always got a building in the context where it's sited, and you have to somehow acknowledge what was there, what is there around you, maybe what was there before, scale, the materiality, all of these design components, right? So the architects that we're working with, they're thinking about this, and we're trying to help them address it, right? So, so currently, like, one of the projects that we're working on is a heritage building, and those ones are even more particular because there's a higher authority in New York specifically. That might be the State Historic Preservation Office or the Landmarks Preservation Committee, which is in the city, and they're pretty specific about how they want to see these buildings dealt with, right?
Yeah.
So if there was a particular module or color or material or jointing or dimension, like a joint dimension, then they want to see that sort of consistently be maintained. And also, it's not just these bodies, but it's these neighborhood associations that are highly involved in specific locations. This is now we're down to the block in New York City, where people become very emotionally attached to these old buildings, and they don't want to see things change too much. They don't want to see, glassy tower in its place and so on. So so people have become very attuned to those things and address them. And our job is to increase the performance, but still keep those emotions intact.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I probably, this is going to be an awful example, but one of what I'm thinking of, and it's not necessarily, yes, it is a historic building, I suppose, but I'm a big football fan, so soccer fan. My football club at the moment, one of the biggest football clubs in the UK, they're talking about knocking down a whole stadium to build a new one. And there is intent there of facility and pushing the club forward. But there's a part of me that, you're attached to that, for whatever reason, that specific structure. Yes. That's where the memories are. That's where the feelings and the emotion is. So as much as there's this brand new, shiny object that represents, I imagine, like the next phase in the club's history, there's still that emotion that's completely attached to this singular structure that's sat there now. So I can imagine having to manage design, engineering, obviously, whilst also trying to manage those emotions of people that are attached to this specific structure must be complex, to put it very simply.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really a sports fan like you are, but I married into a sports family, I think. Yeah. And there's a similar thing here in, when stadia, I'm talking specifically about the Mets, and everyone was attached to their old stadium, and then they built the new one. So what they did there was bring in elements from the old and just insert it in. So like every time somebody gets a home run, they've got the old apple that used to live in Shea Stadium.
Nice.
So there's always like, something to bring people along.
Yeah.
To the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's, I mean, I know you're based in Dubai, and there's always brand shiny new objects, so you might be a little desensitized.
Yes, I am a little bit. Yeah. It's it's nice. Sometimes there's don't know the word, sanitization, whether that's a word or not, I'm not sure. But that is nice in one respect. But then you look back at the UK of these historical buildings, and New York, and these iconic cities. And it's so some of it's magical. So I imagine having to take all that into account and take that building into its next phase of life, which I suppose it is, because the building's still there. It's just ensuring that it continues to live on. So I can imagine that's complex. How much obviously you're looking at it from an engineering perspective. You see the design, and you've got to look at facade engineering. How much I suppose poetic license is given to the new design, and is it quite strict as to what can possibly be done? It's kind of like they're almost designing it for you with the parameters that are set, or is there still quite a lot of freedom in what you can do?
I think it varies. I'm thinking of 3 examples that we're doing right now. We just finished the Frick Museum, and that one was pretty tight. And it's just opened to critical acclaim, and the reason being is because people are saying it's adding nearly 30,000 square feet, but it's as if they've always been there. So the parameters there were pretty tight. However, the engineering in order to achieve that, it's like a swan on water, right? It looks completely serene on top, but underneath it's like a lot of frantic paddling. So it looks, what in that situation, it's a low-rise building, which is the existing mansion from Henry Clay Frick, and then there was an additional expansion on top of the next to the mansion. There was a music room that had a second floor, and there was a reception hall that had a second floor added. And then there was a fine arts library that had several floors added, but also additional area moved towards the northern garden. And the goal there was to be able to match new construction with existing load-bearing construction. So the method by which it was constructed was completely different, yet the jointing had to match. So that was an example of like super tight parameters where the impact needed to be very, very light touch. And then for the skylights, for example, there were existing skylights. They were all removed and replaced and improved. And there, because it's less visible, we had a bit more leeway. But even the view from above, from adjacent buildings where they look down, they wanted to sort of maintain the look and the feel. We had a desire to increase the performance, like reduce the amount of jointing, for example, reduce the amount of potential locations for water ingress, right? Improve the overall U value, center of panel U value. You try to reduce the frame effect. So it's in everyone's best interest to make it as large as possible, but still make it small enough that you could carry it. So that was a bit of a negotiation. And we've done something similar at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Our team has done 2 expansions, renovations there, not really expansions, renovations of existing gallery spaces where the skylights were removed and replaced. So certain areas are a bit, like we were saying, a bit more emotionally attached, a bit more regulated, I'd say. And then other example that we're doing now is like a window replacement, which is in a historic building where as long as it looks like it used to, or you maintain some components in there, they're called artifacts of what the space used to be, then you have a bit more license to make changes and improve it. And then another example for a high-rise tower in Rockefeller Center that we did at on the Avenue of the Americas across from Radio City Music Hall. That one doesn't look anything like it did. I mean, there was vertical elements that there were part of the mechanical system. They were retained. There was some piping within where the column structure, the cladding around the columns. But in between that, all of the glazing was removed, and that was a reclad. And there was a lot more license to improve the performance, change the overall thermal behavior and performance of the whole facade, change the window wall ratio because we were able to use higher performing elements. So that was like a win-win-win because you get more natural daylighting, better performance, and you're not really changing it too much, but you didn't really have to stick with what it used to be either. So that was a great example.
And off the back of that, how much of your engineering, the design, is dictated by what the performance of the facade has to be?
All of it.
Okay, so
performance-based design, like that's our whole, we've got to check it what the requirements are.
It starts with performance and then it's sort of built out from there. Okay.
Yeah, so it starts with performance and design intent. You've got those two things that you're balancing. So you've got to figure out what the performance needs to be in order to work as a holistic building, right? Dovetailed with acoustics and mechanical and lighting and fire. And then there's the design intent on what it wants to look like. And you've got to, that's the whole reason for being in our industry, where you're marrying those two things together. Yeah. So that it achieves all of those performance requirements.
Yeah.
And then adding to that now, there's, new ones where people are starting to worry about other things like embodied carbon and circular economy, so recycling the materials and being able to do that, designing for disassembly. So there's new criteria being added all the time.
Yeah.
And what you're using, how it performs, and then what happens to it later in its life.
Yeah, the circular economy is an interesting one. I had a couple of conversations about that probably 6 or 7 months ago. Where would you say we are on the trajectory of that? Are we still like right at the very beginning of this? Are you seeing the uptake in or buy-in, I suppose, to the concept of it as being a little bit further along?
There are certain places in the world where it's farther along, UK being the most advanced, I'd say. Yeah. There's everyone else is sort of interested in doing the right thing, but the supply chain on how to do it is a bit slower in happening. There are a few building owners in New York that are, they have more stock and they have more ability to be able to do something with some of their materials, right? Yeah. If they're doing upgrades, then they can take advantage of more volume. But a lot of our clients are, one-off owners that, they do one building and then they're done. And it's hard to see how it could be reused in the future. Keeping stock of all of the material passports, who's going to be responsible for where they can go next and how they can be used next. Waste management contractors who are understanding the supply chain for what can be done with different materials, how that all gets dealt with 50, let's say you've got a design life of 50 years or even more, that's a long way down the road. So it depends on who the owner is and what everyone's thinking is. But from the design side, we can design it in now, but we're doing it kind of blindly. We don't know what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah, and I suppose that's just a moving target as well, isn't it? You've got so many different stakeholders that I imagine throughout the whole decision-making process as well. So interesting.
There's a good example in the UK, the Burrell collection in Glasgow, where it was an existing building and it was retrofitted with new glass, and there was a whole design process to reuse the old glass, and reuse some of the existing framing as well. So, I mean, that's not new. It's just that full circle understanding of, not to waste any of the materials, basically. So make the most out of each component.
Yeah, and I imagine that's just more and more useful the more scale it gets. So the more times you can do that, the more you reap the benefits of that. Interesting. No, I know. I suppose again might be another silly question, but looking at the performance, so right at the front end, like you said, anything you design is taking performance into account first, design intent, marrying those two together. Do you see, when you're obviously looking at what you want the thermal performance to be of the facade, how much does it deter away from the original design intent? Do you see that happen a lot, where it sort of comes away from design intent a lot, or is that always sort of kept as the focus?
That's the mark of whether or not we've done a good job, right? The goal is to be able to deliver the hand sketch on the napkin. And
bring it to real life.
Bring it to life, yeah. And then I back to your original question about high quality architecture. The best scenario is when everyone on the team is unified in that approach, right?
Yeah.
So the architect is driven by their design intent, and all their decisions are based on that.
Yep.
Their design decisions, but also their detailing decisions, right? And their approach. And then the engineers who are working with them also understand it and move in that direction. And then the facade contractor who bids on this project and is the one bringing it to realization, that they're on board as well. And when everybody's, working towards that, then that's the definition of a fantastic project.
Brilliant. I love it. This episode is brought to you by Architectural Glass and Aluminum, otherwise known as AGA. Looking for a trusted glazing partner? AGA has been working alongside industry leaders for over 55 years, providing reliable and high-quality glazing solutions. Specializing in Class A office buildings, hospitals, airports, and higher education, AGA creates custom curtain wall systems tailored to your project needs. With a focus on collaboration and craftsmanship, AGA is here to support your next project. So visit aga-ca.com to learn more about their services and capabilities. That's aga-ca.com. Now back to this week's episode. We're gonna segue on to a more selfish part of the podcast, more for me than anything. But I'm interested on your perspective of working with glazing contractors, and you've worked with some of the best out there. I'm thinking a couple in the Northeast particularly, but I won't name drop. But let's talk and discuss what a good trade partner looks like for you. Obviously, we're talking glazing or cladding contractors here. But, from an engineering consultant's perspective, what does a good relationship look like with your glazing contractors, and what do you want from them? What does good look like on that side of it?
Yeah. So they're in, it's not an easy position to be in, because they're receiving a design which can range, depends on the project, right? It can range from completely not baked to half baked to fully baked, right?
Yeah.
It depends. And they've got to understand what they've been given, understand what we just mentioned, right? All the performance criteria and the design intent, and then take it forward.
Yeah.
So, there's always I guess in the best scenario, there's a good handover where the design team is able to explain what the issues were, how they've been resolved, what's important, what's still open, if anything, maybe the whys, why this needs to be X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Some of the projects have more specific criteria, like security or something that's not normal, typical, right?
Yeah.
So that's part of the bid meetings, right?
Yeah.
So once that, I guess there's an openness and a willingness to listen.
Yeah.
And then a respect for the level of work that's been done to date,
Yeah.
and an understanding of what the design intent is, and not just wanting to change things because it ends up using a system that might be cheaper or easier or known, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot
I
of
don't want to give a
sense.
specific example, but like,
No, of course.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, but like even a system, the way a system performs, if there's like a lot of the times, people prefer to do belt and suspenders design approach so that you have redundancy in the system, and you've got a second line of defense for waterproofing, or you've got something beefed up for a security requirement. And I'm sure there's always ways to reduce and save money and cut corners, but it depends, again, back to the high quality architecture, right? There's also high quality delivery of the finished product, and the finished components. So an understanding of all of those issues, and then picking it up and running with it, and also working collaboratively to close out any of the design issues. Like, one of the most fun I've ever had on a project was working with a contractor on one of these Renzo piano jobs to solve an open issue about access. And it was just not fully baked at the time when it went out for bid. Sometimes facades go out quite early, right? It could be as early as 50% design development, and you just haven't ironed everything out, right? So everybody was up to all hours, and it was just like, a real design charrette in the fullest sense. Yeah. And it's super fun, right? When you're bringing all these smart minds together, it doesn't matter which side of the table they're sitting on, and everybody's got a vested interest in working it out. That's a great example of, what it's like to be working together.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're looking for solutions, someone to understand and have the communication to be able to take the time to understand what the design intent is and why this even exists to start with, but also provide solutions that aren't just not necessarily a copy and paste answer, because I imagine there are some elements that need some standard features, but actually providing a system, providing a solution that keeps everything at the front end in mind. With that being said, is there, again, coming from the glazing contractors, they're going to the bid interviews, they're trying to understand what the design intent is. Do you see any sort of gap in what has already been designed and what's there, and why a glazing contractor maybe wouldn't understand what the design intent is? Is there like a typical thing that they don't necessarily grasp, or maybe there's a language?
Well, that's the quality of the it depends on the quality of the bid documents. Like, we tend to be on the higher end projects where there's time and money, right? But there's all sorts of other projects out there that glazing contractors get that don't have as much time or money or detail, so it's just harder to glean. So even like the bid interview process might be something that's hurried through, and it can be hard, right? They're taking something over that this is leaning towards the not fully baked pile.
Sure.
Right? So
and I know obviously to put a bid together is a big investment for the glazing contractors, and obviously a huge investment that has already been made up to that point on the architects and engineering side. Do you see any, and you've been doing this for, you'll have seen it all. Do you see any solution to getting those documents to a more detailed level without, I don't know what the word is, giving up on time or schedule or whatever part of the design process is? do you see any solution to getting more detail in there for them so that they've got more to go at? Or is it just, it is what it is? That's kind of where we're at with time and money.
This is my plug for facade consultants and facade engineers, I guess. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's our job, right? So if a project has the budget to hire a consultant or an engineer, then a lot of those issues can be determined in the design phase, where everything that's drawn is actually justified with engineering. So so that you as the contractor know that what you're receiving has been thought through and is coordinated with all the other disciplines on the project, right? And they don't need to worry about how does this mesh with the mechanical engineering design, because that's been done, right? So that's the benefit and the value that this branch of our business brings to the whole process. Yeah. So facade engineers, have been, everyone's been saying that, asking that question for the better part of 2 decades, if not 3. Why hire us? Yeah. So that's what we do.
Yeah,
we try to make life easier for everyone that coming down the pipe.
And if you were to give one piece of advice to every glazing contractor out there, one piece of advice, what would it be? What would be something that they could bring to a project that would be beneficial for everyone in the project?
I think patience and respect for the design team. Everyone's on the same side, right?
Yeah.
We're all on the same team. We're all trying to do the best for the project.
Yeah.
And also, if there's something novel on a project, to respect the IP. I'd say that too.
Understood.
That's what makes the project special.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that. I could go on for days picking your brain about this, but we'll move in. In fact, before we move on to the quick fire questions, is there anything else you want to add, or anything else you want to sort of touch on both topics? We obviously looked at the challenges that you face in these super complex buildings, navigating all sorts of different stakeholders and moving parts with existing buildings. And then we've looked at the glazing contractors and, what a good trade partner actually looks like to you guys. Is there anything else you want to add on either of those?
I guess I'll just say that that everyone should try to abide by the mock-up and testing process. It's really, really helpful.
Okay.
I guess that's one of the things that people try to VE out when projects get bid. Yeah, because again, not every project has deep pockets, and it can be quite expensive. But carrying out mock-ups, especially on existing buildings, is really, really important, because sometimes we don't know. We're not able to do full probes, and we don't really know what the existing building secrets are until we're out there, and then it's almost too late when you're out on site and you encounter something and you don't know how to, you're kind of winging it on the fly in the field during CA. So mock-ups and testing, sometimes we're using off-the-shelf systems and people feel like, I already know how that works. I know how to install it. It's a known entity. But more often than not, we're modifying those systems to suit an existing condition, an existing field condition. Yeah. And knowing the idiosyncrasies of the project, or even the sequencing of how you're going to meet an existing condition, or how you're going to marry several subcontractors together, that can be a huge learning experience for the team. Everyone, not just the contractors, but the owner, the engineers who designed it, everyone's learning something from this process of having gone through it. And when you are able to do it in a mock-up situation, you can, controlled conditions, then you can learn without any massive repercussions, right? And you can take that onto site, use it, roll it out, and your life will be easier. So
awesome.
That would be my suggestion.
Yeah, I love that. And what does that
actually not just for existing buildings either? That's for everybody.
Yeah. What does that look like in practice? That's obviously you've got the mock-up and that's off-site, and you're trying to essentially replicate the conditions
so it could
of
be a
the
PMU,
building.
But it could also be an in situ mock-up, right? If you've got like we've got an existing building now, and we want to do a couple of in situ mock-ups to just make sure we cover all of the different scenarios that exist, like different size, for example, windows that we're replacing. Just to make sure that the whole process for an existing, maybe you're remediating something that's got asbestos or lead or another, condition, just to make sure that you understand that whole process and run through the checklist of what needs to be done when and how.
Yeah.
So that you can roll it out during construction.
Love that. And there's value for everyone there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Thank you for that. Right, we're going to dive into these quick fire questions, Tali. I promise these are going to be really simple for you to answer, I promise.
We'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start with food. So what's your favorite food?
Food. Steak.
Nice.
My father was Argentinian, and I can't say no to a good steak with chimichurri.
Oh yeah. What cut of the meat would you choose?
So the Argentinian cuts are a bit different. I don't know if you
as far as going to and like a South American, South American.
Beef in a chorizo is like a New York strip kind of cut. That's always yummy. Or an entraña, which is like skirt steak or a Romanian steak.
Yeah.
Those are good.
Love it. With some chimichurri on the side. Sounds
not
delicious.
On the side, on top.
On top. Sorry, no, on top. Yeah. No, I love that. Tons of salt for me as well. Cool. Favorite city and why?
City. So Sydney. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Sydney's my favorite. I told you I spent 4 years there, and I would have stayed if it wasn't for my family in New York pulling me home. But yeah, great place to be. Plus, my formative years there, not just in facades, but growing up and so on.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Great attitude. Maybe a little bit too far away from the center of the universe, which is New York, right?
I can't argue with that. So let's go with that.
But maybe a little too quiet, but probably my favorite city.
Yeah, no, I love that. And then I would ask you sports team, but you kind of gave it to us with it has to be the Mets, right?
Well, it's not my favorite sports team, but it is now that we have
by association
season pass, and plus my kids are really into baseball and tennis.
Oh, great.
There's no sports team for tennis, so there you go.
Yeah, I know. Well, saying that, there was the what's her name? Just won Roland Garros last week. What's her name? The American tennis
Coco
player.
Gauff.
That's it, Coco. Yeah, that's it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So American tennis is back on the rise with Coco, apparently.
Yeah, we're not really focused on Americans. So my family are, as I told you, like Argentina, and my mom grew up in Brazil, and my in-laws grew up in Australia and New Zealand. So like everyone's from all over the place. So we're global.
I'm sure there was
following.
I'm sure there was a famous Argentinian. Was it Del Potro? Was he Argentinian?
No, you got me.
I think he might be. You're gonna have to everyone's gonna fact check me on this and put it in the comments and tell me how wrong I am. But for tennis, I'm sure there was Del Potro is coming to mind.
Oh, I used
to watch a bit of tennis, but not religiously. But any of the major finals, I'm sure he was Argentinian.
No, we went to the tennis. Oh gosh, the U.S. Open, Open days last year, and now his name is escaping me. But we saw an Argentinian guy. It was pretty fun. But he's at the end of his career.
Yeah. No, I love that. Favorite hobby?
The hobbies. So the hobbies are in hibernation right now,
Yeah.
because I'm so overwhelmed with family life at the moment,
Yeah.
and have been for many years. So I have like, hobbies that I would like to get back to
Yeah.
when I have the time and inclination. So do those count?
Yeah, absolutely they do. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so then running.
Yeah.
Um, I used to be in this running club that you might know. I don't know, the Hash House Harriers. And so I did that
Nice.
in when I was in Sydney, and actually they originated in Malaysia, so I did that in Malaysia too. It was fun. So running and Argentinian tango, and also
Cool.
clarinet, and yeah. So I've been on hiatus from a few things for a while, family
Yeah,
related.
that's the thing, isn't it? When it's family life, you do your own hobbies, and then they get put to the side. Then you watch the kids do their hobbies and take enjoyment from that. And then I imagine when they've sort of moved out of the way, then you pick up the old hobbies and go again, don't you? So at least you've got an idea of what you're coming back to, which is nice.
Exactly.
Cool. Favorite book or movie?
Oh gosh, my movies are lowbrow. You want to hear my old school favorite movie is *Romancing the Stone*.
Nice.
With
Not one I'm familiar with, which
Kathleen.
you're
Oh
probably
God, you
not.
have to see it.
You're probably not surprised.
Kathleen Turner and Michael Douglas. That's
Nice.
my fallback one. And book. So if you want to go serious for a moment, my husband recently wrote a book about our son who passed away several years ago. That's my current favorite book, and we've been doing a lot of. He's been doing a lot of talking about it, but we've been doing a lot of um, sort of awareness, and he
Yeah.
passed away from congenital heart defects at the age of 8 years ago. So we've been
Oh
speaking.
wow.
I run a Grand Rounds lecture every year at his home hospital in New York, and a lot of other hospitals have been interested. So a lot of discussion about how to look after kids like that.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah,
yeah. No, I'm
lots of
obviously
interest from the
sorry.
medical
Really sorry.
community.
Yeah, really sorry
Okay.
to hear that. But it sounds like you're obviously, remembering him with the book and the
Yeah.
awareness and carrying that on. So good for you. Good for you. Um, what's the best bit of advice that you've ever received?
We're back to patience again, I think. So when I first
Yeah.
started at Arup, I had worked with an amazing mentor, and he was like, "You just have to kind of stick with it, and um, you know, it takes time to become a good engineer, and you kind of need to just be patient." And I'd say, even non-professional advice is just to know what you don't know and to acknowledge it. Not there's a not everyone knows everything, and in our industry, there's new things happening all the time. So just keep learning and be patient, and
Yeah.
don't expect that it's going to come overnight, and
Yeah.
just keep keeping at it.
Yeah. There's a lot of power, I think, in being able to understand and know what you don't know. I think because that is part of the learning journey, isn't it? If you can't
Exactly.
figure out that you're never going to know everything, and there's also that kind of points you into directions as well that you might be good at or more interested in because you can't know it all, but you may have a specific interest in certain different areas that you can just go deeper and deeper into rather than focusing on trying to figure out everything under the sun. So yeah, I
Yeah.
love that bit of advice.
And that's the
Um,
benefit of assembling a great team, right? That there's
yeah,
people who have different focuses, and they can work together and cover all those as much of the knowledge breadth as you need.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's pretty much defining a team, isn't it? You can't win. The famous saying is that there's no I in teams, so you've got to have people with different perspectives, knowledge bases, everything, and motivations. Yeah, I love that bit of advice. If you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be and why?
Yeah, I was thinking about this. I don't think I've come up with a solution yet, but I think it would be Ove Arup. I know that sounds
Okay.
ridiculous.
No.
And then failing that, just to find out what the heck he was thinking.
Yeah.
He started this crazy firm.
Yeah.
But I think maybe Zaha Hadid. It'd be really great to meet one of these. She's probably one of the most influential female architects, with some pretty funky facades, and she went way too young, and it would be pretty awesome to talk to her.
Pick her brain, yeah, brilliant. Number one thing on your bucket list?
The bucket list. Travel. Yeah. Maybe hike the Appalachian Trail. Maybe like take a year off and go sailing around the world, or not even sailing, just go.
Yeah. Travel. I love that. And if you could travel anywhere right now, where would you travel to?
Right. So I'm trying to set up a trip right now. It's the summer before my oldest goes to uni, and we're trying to do something new and fun. So what I'm going to do is do the everywhere or anywhere application on Skyscanner or Google Flights or Kayak, and figure out where we can go for 2 weeks in August. But I'm kind of hoping it's somewhere like Norway or Iceland or Thailand or somewhere that I haven't been to yet.
Very cool.
Yeah, we'll see.
I love that. And this is golf terminology, so I apologize. I'm a big golfer. But if I could give you a mulligan, which is basically a redo on any decision you've ever made, what would you choose?
Ooh, redo. From a professional sense?
Whatever you want. Professional, personal?
Well, personal is to do with my son, because we took him on a crazy trip to Australia, which went awry, so probably wouldn't have taken that trip. But professionally, I don't know. There's a redo. I mean, it's bad to live your life with regret. I'd say that maybe with study, like I did a dual degree. When I finished university, I came straight to work. And I started teaching, because that's what you do, right? I didn't teach right away. I did my whole. I started working as a structural engineer, and then I went to Australia, and then when I came back to New York, I started teaching. And during that time, maybe there was an inkling of going to grad school, right?
Okay.
My undergrad was civil structures and a design degree that was like pre-architecture. So I always wanted to go back to get master's or professional degree in architecture, an MArch. But at that stage I was teaching in an MArch program. So one of my mentors in New York said to me, Tali, why would you even consider doing that? You're teaching in the program that you want to go to. And I'm like, yeah, good point. But I could have gone back for, master's in structural or something else,
Always be learning.
But do you really need a tertiary university degree to be learning? I don't know.
No. Well, my opinion is you absolutely don't. But I think it would be more in my brain, not that you need the MArch to learn, but as you go through that process, you've done the whole like educational qualification. Then you've gone into works, and then taught. And I feel like, certainly for me, when I try and teach something, I almost learn something myself through teaching. So by going back and
Teaching's
going
great
through the educational piece, you will probably look at all of the questions that are being asked and the information probably completely differently, and maybe pick up some things that you maybe wouldn't have done if you'd have done it 6 years earlier.
Yeah, true. And then on the teaching front, like, it's always better if you're a practitioner when you're teaching and not just an academic teaching. It's just you bring more to your own practice then. It helps.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, because you're doing the theory and the practical and actually problem solving day to day, aren't you, in that field? Yeah, I love that. No, this has been great, Tali. I really appreciate it. I know people who are watching the YouTube version of this are going to imagine how we magicked you into a different room. Let's keep that to ourselves. I think we'll leave it open to imagination. This has been awesome. I thank you so much for bringing so much value and giving me an hour of your time as well. So wish you the best of luck in your next endeavors and the travel in the summer as well.
Thank you so much, Thomas. Real pleasure talking to you.
Thanks. Guys, that's it for this week's episode of the Facade Focus Podcast, presented by me, Tom Caldicott, founder and CEO of Unity Search, where I help glass and metal businesses hire the best talent and build their brand on LinkedIn. Now, I've worked across Asia, the Middle East, Europe, and North America, and I'm on a mission to help connect each facade community to give you the tools to learn and grow. Now, I'm a big believer in sharing knowledge and provoking conversation, so I hope you take something valuable from each episode that gets you thinking about how you can be better tomorrow. Remember to like and subscribe the video on YouTube and give us a 5-star rating on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It really helps us reach more people to achieve our goal of connecting the global facade industry. Tune in again for next week's episode, and I'll see you all there.